I'm not going over the top with Xavi Simons. I saw what I saw yesterday. He totally turned that game around for Spurs, and we deserved more than a point, in my opinion. Thomas Frank called that Spurs' best performance of the season so far, and I would probably be inclined to agree. It wasn't the result that we wanted, it wasn't the result that we came for, but I think we came away with less than we deserved in the end, to be honest, after that second half performance that was spearheaded by this little magician. I'm so glad that he's ours, and we're going to go into his performance, look at the little details as to why he is so special. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and like the video as well. Let me know your thoughts on the performance in the comments. We're going to go through Spurs' first half performance, and actually, despite being 2-0 down within the first 25-30 minutes, so why we actually weren't that bad in the game, why we deserved to come back into it, what we got right in build-up as opposed to what we've been seeing with the other games. I'm going to talk about the left-wing dynamic between Udogie and Odegaard and why that was much better. I'm going to talk about Mohammed Kudus, and I'm also going to talk about Christian Romero and his role in getting Spurs back into this game as well. So this is how Spurs set up in the game. There was a fair few changes from what we saw in midweek. Xavi Simons not starting, which was a bit of a surprise to us all. Obviously, we're so eager and desperate to see him after what we've seen in the first few games and how much we kind of need someone like that to add that bit of quality in the final third and also help us progress the ball centrally, which I don't think we had as much of an issue with yesterday, to be honest. I thought our overall play in that first half was pretty good. It was pretty good. Paulinho, Bergvall and Bentancur was the midfield, Odegaard and Udogie. I thought Udogie was pretty outstanding across the course of 90 minutes from a defensive point of view in terms of his recovery as well. I really like the relationship that he had with Wilson Odegaard, and that's kind of what I want to touch on because Spurs started the game really, really brightly. You can see us kind of building up here with Romero and Van der Ven at the back, Udogie and Porro high and wide. Van der Ven gets the ball here and sprays this ball into Wilson Odegaard, who is so comfortable receiving the ball on the touchline. I think when you saw Brennan Johnson come on in the second half, despite the fact that I don't think Odegaard ripped up any trees yesterday or was necessarily amazing, I was really encouraged with what I saw from him, to be honest, and also that just dynamic on the left-hand side and why it works so much better with someone that is just comfortable receiving the ball in these kind of areas. And he does that here, looks to drive inside, plays the ball into Richarlison. You can see here Destiny Udogie busting a gut to kind of get into this space. I think we saw him as fit as we'd kind of seen him yesterday. Thomas Frank has kind of been careful and sort of eased him back in with his fitness, but also the fact that Jed Spencer's been playing really well. That's kind of what stopped Destiny Udogie getting game time. But after his performance yesterday, I think it's quite hard for him to maybe come out of the team, but it's a good problem for Spurs to have. Richarlison lays that ball off to Udogie, who uses his strength here to bounce off Veltman. Plays the ball back into Odegaard. Spurs work it again. Bentancur back to Odegaard. You can see here Odegaard and Udogie have kind of switched positions here. Udogie comfortable taking up that inverted role that we saw him do quite a lot under Ange. I think the fact that he's comfortable in wide areas and in the centre of the pitch with the way that Spurs kind of look to create movement and chaos in that final third and just kind of create different angles is something that's going to be really beneficial to us as well. He can just open his body up that little bit more than Spence and is comfortable kind of receiving with his back to goal and playing little first time balls, etc. Bentancur works it back out to Odegaard. Udogie in that kind of inverted position makes this run. Odegaard plays the pass to find him. And this is what I found quite interesting. One thing I saw in some of the training clips from this week, and I think a lot of Spurs fans kind of picked up on it as well, was Udogie crossing the ball in the air. I don't think I've actually seen Udogie that many times cross the ball from lofted, kind of get the ball in the air. It's always like if you get kind of played in those sort of positions, he kind of looks to smash it low and hard across the box, or he doesn't like to cross from deeper positions, and that's why he's sort of opposite to Porro in terms of what he offers from an attacking point of view. But he stands across up to the back post here. Kudus with a lovely touch brings it down. I thought Kudus was exceptional again yesterday, and again here you kind of see an example of why. He's just got that ability to kind of play the game at his own rhythm, draw defenders in, and then kind of make this burst to the byline. He's very comfortable kind of doing both, right? He can cut inside and maybe get a shot off there, but he probably realises with the amount of bodies in the box, it's probably going to get blocked. So he just waits and waits and waits, goes to the byline, but he's got the strength to kind of bounce back and then play the ball back to Porro in this position. I think Kudus and Porro, I touched on this in the video after Wednesday, their relationship's developing really nicely. I think Spurs are often kind of, with the amount of bodies that we commit in the box there, you've got Bentancur, Paulinho, Bergvall, Odegaard, Richarlison and Udogie all kind of waiting to get potentially on the end of this cross. And if you look at the amount of Brighton players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, everybody's kind of back behind the ball, but there's enough options in the box. You see Paulinho's free for a free hitter there. You see Udogie at the back post. I think Spurs are quite often trying to fashion these kind of cutback chances from Kudus with his ability to go both ways, either cross himself, or he always knows that if he does go to the byline and kind of hits a bit of a dead end, he's always got Porro backing him up to get this ball in the box. It's such a difficult and dangerous angle, well, difficult to deal with, but a dangerous angle to cross from an attacking point of view. Porro's ball comes into the box. It's behind for a corner. And again, with the threat that you're there, the more set pieces, the more pressure you can put in the final third and all those kind of things as well. That's what Spurs are looking to do. Again, here, another example. Udogie in this kind of central position once again. Odebear, the one hugging the touchline. The sort of dynamic that I think we wanted to see under Ange that little bit more. These two kind of rotating, alternating positions. There's nothing wrong with having your fullback inside. I don't think we should totally abandon the use of inverted fullbacks under Postecoglou. You see Porro kind of coming into the centre of a back three for build-up, or the right side of a back three for build-up at times as well. It just creates that bit more unpredictability, but there's more structure around it to allow it to happen now. Udogie here, that little pass into Bentancur, out to Odebear, and again you can see Udogie making this underlapping run into this space that Brighton left, and they couldn't really deal with us in the first 10 minutes. Odebear into him. Udogie, the composure he shows in the box here to draw in the tackle, and then again this time he does decide to smash low and hard, because again the amount of bodies that are in the box, anything can happen there. It's one of those. And Brighton clear. But I thought we started the game really well, and I was encouraged by what I was seeing from us from an attacking point of view. But then we go 1-0 down, and I was at the game yesterday. Anybody watching it, I think in the moment you're sort of like, oh, that's really frustrating. It's not a great goal to concede. You leave that sort of space in behind. But I don't think it was, on reflection, as bad. It's one of those where you commit bodies high up the pitch, you look to be aggressive, you're always risking leaving that space. It's just kind of par for the course sometimes in the way that you play, and hopefully you were able to keep the ball better and maybe win the second balls to kind of stop this kind of from happening. Odebear gets shrugged off it by Minter, who I think Minter is outstanding, by the way. Like, I think that's one of my kind of takeaways from yesterday. I've been saying it for a while. I said it in pre-season about this guy. And again, I'm not pretending that he's like, oh, I had a bit of orange fluff in my hair. We've got a new blanket on the sofa, and I realised it was my hair the whole time. He's a really strong player, and I think Liverpool should maybe be looking at him as a replacement for Salah. This guy is really, really good, and I think he caused us problems yesterday. But I also think that Udogie dealt with him well at times. But again, the rotation that we saw in that front line with Udogie coming centrally and Odebear that little bit deeper maybe caused us a bit of a problem here on the goal. Gruder gets inside and away from Bentancur. They have got tricky little dynamic players that are going to cause you issues. It is what it is sometimes. Ruter there, Van der Ven steps up tight to him, which obviously leaves that space. You haven't got Van der Ven's recovery pace. Odebear, ends up being the deepest player. Ideally, you want Udogie there. But again, if you lose the ball, you're always going to be kind of suspect in terms of dealing with those in those rotations in the final third. Like if you've got Udogie coming inside, Odebear the one hugging the touchline, sometimes deeper with Udogie in a more advanced position. You do leave yourselves vulnerable to this, but it is what it is. It's not, and it was very close to being offside as well. A disciplined line, and if that's off, then you're saying that's really good defending. Spurs kind of stepping high up the pitch, not allowing Brighton to necessarily exploit. But obviously it's such fine margins, and Minter goes through on goal. So I'm not that unhappy with that goal conceded yesterday. I think it's just one of them, to be honest. But the second goal is far more preventable. Bergvall should deal with this better. It's just a bit of naivety, maybe a little bit here. His clearance is blocked. It falls to Ayari. I don't really understand why. And I thought Paulinho had a good game yesterday. I thought Bentancur was okay. I thought Porro had another decent game. But I don't really understand why nobody's quicker to kind of try and block that shot from Ayari. Maybe Paulinho feels like if he's the one that jumps, there's a pass back on to Belieber there. But there's not as much kind of threat. I don't know. He doesn't really do it. Kind of late attempt to block the shot. But Vicario should be dealing with that a lot better. Like, again, I find it difficult sometimes. I find it difficult sometimes at the best of times as someone who's, I'm not an ex-professional footballer or anything like that. Sometimes you feel a little bit of imposter syndrome analysing games at kind of this level where you're just giving your take on it as a fan, right, and kind of watching it back. And I feel even, harsh about doing it about goalkeepers sometimes. But I was expecting at half-time to kind of look at my phone and see a replay of it, having sort of been behind the goal and saw it go in, at least expecting to see some sort of little swerve or movement on the ball. There just wasn't anything really. And it's really disappointing. Really, really disappointing. I don't think it's necessarily fuel to start having conversations about Vicario and where do we go from here with him, but it's really poor, and I think he'll know that more than anybody. I think it maybe swerved a little bit, but at least that's what he said to Ayari after the game. They asked Ayari about it on Match of the Day, but yeah, not great. But the Spurs, I don't think Spurs deserve to be 2-0 down, to be honest. Like, we were poor maybe in terms of our decision making at some points in the final third. I thought we had the better of the play, the better of the possession, and I think this goal kind of summed up what we did well in the first and the second half, really. Bentancur does well here to jump onto Belieber from the pass for Van Hecke to kind of close him down and press him. I thought our midfield was full of energy yesterday. Bentancur makes it difficult for Belieber. He kind of turns into trouble. Kudus pinches it off him, but it then ricochets back, and Paulinho doing what he did yesterday. No player has made more tackles in the Premier League so far than him, and he gets in there just to intercept there. Strong tackle, reads it really well, and then he's got Belieber kind of jumping onto him. He can kind of play a safe pass into Bentancur, which does open it up, but he breaks this line, gets it into Kudus, who can kind of receive it on the half turn. And what he does so well is the use of his body here. Waits for it to kind of come to him, gets away from Kadioglu, and then spins back inside. And then look at the runners you've got. You've got Bergvall, Bentancur, Odegaard. Really does well to kind of open up the pitch here. Kudus into Bentancur. You've got runners out to Odegaard, cut back. It's a little bit messy from kind of here on in, really. Bentancur can't really get that shot off. Brighton have got 5 players protecting the goal in front of the goalkeeper. But it's actually intelligent play from Bentancur here. Sort of out the corner of his eye, can spot that cut back to Kudus is the better option. Kudus gets the shot off first time. Into Richarlison. There's a very funny screenshot there. Richarlison just like standing there like a penguin as it hits him. And he's able to put the ball in the back of the net. And I think Spurs were value for at least, I don't think we deserve to be 2 goals down going into that first half. And I think we showed real fight and spirit to kind of come back into it, which is something I want to talk about in the second half as well. But I don't think last season, or under maybe the last few managers, I don't think we get back in that game from that position. Last year at Brighton, we were 2-0 up, absolutely cruising, and our lack of game management meant that we threw it away and bottled it. It was on the players and the manager. But this year, we kind of showed really, really good fight to do the same as what Brighton did to us. Obviously, we couldn't get the win, but I thought we were good value for it if it did come our way. I don't think anybody would be complaining about Spurs getting that 3rd goal yesterday. But part of the big reason that we were able to do that, come back into it, was how aggressive we were in that second half in terms of the press, forcing loads of mistakes from Brighton in the first phase of that second half. All of these 3 examples that I'm going to show you were all within like 3 minutes of each other. Spurs would put pressure on and maybe a cross would go out and it would go for a goal kick. Spurs here, the amount of times we limit the passing options out from the back. Verbruggen would even have to play out to Dunk, and then we're in there. Porro steps up so well to win that ball back. We were, every time, whether they play it through the centre of the pitch or force it out wide and go forward that way onto the wing, it was either Romero or Porro or Van der Ven, and there's an example of each of the 3 of them here stepping up and winning that ball back, winning their duels, and the amount of space that Brighton leaving in the middle. Bentancur first time pass into Richarlison. I think Richarlison may have just been offside, but it shows you the space that was there to be exploited. And again, this is from that resulting instance. Verbruggen collects the ball, plays it out to Van Hecke. He then tries that channel ball, and it's Van der Ven that's stepping up and winning the ball back for Spurs. Odegaard, and we can kind of open the pitch up, maybe get a cross in. And then I think from that resulting goal kick, from that phase, Verbruggen tries a pass down the middle. Romero steps up. I loved Romero's aggression and his leadership and his intensity yesterday. You saw it in the celebration for the equalising goal, how much that meant to him to get us back in the game. And I think his aggression, stepping up at times and leading that back line to be brave and squeeze out onto Brighton and kind of leave space in behind. Obviously, it's kind of what we were doing in the first half as well. Be brave in terms of doing that, but we had to get back in the game. And that bravery and desire to win all of those duels, to continually put Brighton under pressure, that's something that we did really, really well. And Romero was such a big part of that, leading that back line. So calm, but so aggressive. The perfect balance of both was on there for everyone to see yesterday. But a player that I've been dying to talk about is Xavi Simons, because in the game, I thought the momentum was with us anyway. And you can kind of see that from the momentum bar. We had the bulk of the possession, the bulk of the pressure throughout the game. But look at that second half, man. All us until kind of we got that equalising goal, and then Brighton started to put a little bit more pressure on. And I think one of the reasons that we may be able to not sustain as much pressure is that Odegaard-Johnson substitution, because Johnson just isn't as comfortable holding onto the ball in those wide areas, and a lot of attacks would kind of break down. So that was a little bit disappointing, but it was all Tottenham second half. And then I think here, when you kind of get into that deeper phase of momentum as that graph goes lower, that was around the time of the Xavi Simons substitution, who was just excellent. Absolutely excellent when he came on. And like I said, I put out a tweet yesterday talking about kind of comparing him to Eze, and it was probably a bit of a naive thing to say. And I was, when you're on the train back from the game, giddy, talking about the player's performance. I said that essentially what I meant was Xavi Simons has got that kind of fine, I'll do it myself kind of vibe about him, whereas for all of Eze's ability and quality, I'm not sure he's necessarily got that. I did say Eze's not got the ability to do that. I didn't mean from a technical perspective, but anyway, I think Simons, that's what I love about him, and his attitude and his desire to make things happen and kind of give me the ball, I'll solve the problem, and I love that. here you can kind of see him dropping in. This is his first touch of the game, his first action of the game. We've been crying out, as I said in the video in the week, for our kind of number 10 to drop deep in more of an aggressive press to help us play out from the back. And his first touch is just a little first-time ball out to a doggy with the outside of his foot, and then Spurs can build. And then he kind of makes the run into this space, Simons. And he first-time little toe poke down the line to Odegaard, who receives it, but Simons is fouled, disrupting the game. Really good start from him, dropping into that pocket that we spoke about, getting deeper. But also his impact high up the pitch. I want to talk about Mohammed Kudus here as well. This is the second thing that I want to talk about. The second example, I want to show you what I really like what Simons did. Paulinho plays that ball long. And one thing I loved about Kudus' game was not only his relenting ability to go 1v1 and go both ways and cause Kadioglu so many problems. It's his ability to receive here with his back to goal and make something happen, make it stick, and then we can kind of open up the pitch. That's what he does. Turns away from Kadioglu. You can see Simons here making the run into this space to try and get in behind. But we work it out to the left-hand side. It really opens up for us. Out to a doggy who plays it out to Odegaard. Simons in the box here. You can kind of see that he wants to come back and get into this space. This is the sort of zone that you want Simons operating in that kind of left half space. He comes short to get it. Richarlison makes the run in behind. Richarlison tries to play it back to Simons, but he's there on the edge of the box. When it kind of breaks to him to get that shot off, it goes wide. But again, these examples that I'm showing you here, these first kind of 3 examples, are all within the first couple of minutes of him coming on the pitch, right? Again here, Brighton play the ball forward. Bergvall kind of gets across, and Bergvall then gets across again to win it. That was such a great feature of what we did in the second half in terms of being able to break play out. Bergvall had a poor first half, to be honest, but he got so much better as the game went on. Playing that little bit deeper when Simons came on, he's so good at winning the ball, and winning the second one in the centre of the pitch. He plays it to Kudus. Great first touch. And then again here, you can just see Kadioglu frightened of him. Kudus, that burst to go round him, then get away from him. Simons, look at the area that he's picking up. Kudus checks back inside into Xavi Simons. And again, this is within the first 2-3 minutes of him coming on. This is exactly where you want him, in this kind of zone, to make things happen. Richarlison's making that run in behind, and look at the space that he's in. Bergvall also making that run. And Simons picks out the pass into, well, it's intended for Richarlison, but Bergvall kind of takes it over. If he lets that run, Richarlison's got a really good opportunity to score there, and it's a bit of a shame. But as we move it on here, Spurs building out from the back of Paulinho into a doggy. Again, talking about this kind of central position that he picks up with Odegaard on the touchline. You've got that double width with 2 players that are kind of comfortable staying out wide, but again, you know what Simons wants to do. He wants to drive inside. And you can see here, look at the Brighton players just backing off as he makes these runs. Back off, back off, back off. And then he's got that ability to just check, come back inside. This is the composure and playing the game at his kind of tempo and his rhythm. Checks inside, stands up the man. Again, almost putting his foot on the ball here to just stop it. And what I like about him, and there's another example that I've got to show later, and I think it's why he might be more effective a bit when Solanke comes back into the team, because he loves this little bounce pass into the striker for him to then make the run off. Like either for him to kind of get into this area to get a shot at goal, or to kind of maybe go beyond him and play sort of a 1-2. Richarlison holds it up. We recycle. Goes back to Odegaard. Back to Paulinho. Again, Simons kind of coming out. Spurs work it. Odegaard out on that touchline. Spurs work it out over to him. Simons still in that little left half space, but Odegaard stands up the man, and it's the intelligence from Simons here to kind of realise that if he's going to go to the line, let me pick up this position so I can come and get a cross in. That's what he does. Cross gets blocked, but again, he's good at delivering from these positions. It gets blocked, but again, Spurs sustaining that pressure, win the second ball. That's what we did so well yesterday. Simons comes out to that touchline in this zone, again, one of the zones where you kind of want him out in this left half space to kind of then drive in here and make things happen. Simons picks it up. Little Cruyff turn on the half turn. And again, they're backing off because they know what he can do. And he comes in and gets the shot in. Again, this is all like within the first 5 minutes of him coming on. Talk about grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck. He was just excellent. Again, a kind of another example of Spurs hoovering up these second balls and getting Simons into the game. Van Hecker, clearance from the long ball. Bergvall wins it using his physicality. Is backed up by Romero. Romero, look here. Again, if you want to talk about his line-breaking passing, look at the amount of players he takes out the game with this. I'll just open up the space. Taking 3 Brighton players out of it. Into Kudus. Again, puts his foot on the ball. And you can see the run that Bergvall wants to make here. Simons, again, in this kind of dangerous area that you want him in to make runs from deep into the box. Kudus goes to the byline again. His 1v1 ability, his 1v1 threat is so amazing to have such a consistent 1v1 threat as we do in Mohammed Kudus. Gets to the byline, using his pace, so comfortable going both ways, so comfortable using both feet. Dunk's picking up Bergvall. No one's picking up the run that Simons is making from deep into this area. Really good cutback. Really good dummy from Bergvall as well. That game intelligence, that quality that he's got. There is a lot of quality in this team in terms of decision making, and Simons just drags that shot wide. But again, like I said, this is all within like the first 10 minutes of him coming on. It's crazy the impact that he had. What I like about him as well is a kind of another example here is not just what he does on the ball, but if we kind of zoom in here as Spurs are building out, I spoke about his mentality and that desire to grab the game, and it's kind of the fine, I'll do it myself kind of aspect. He's moving everyone around. He understands the game state. He understands the tactics really well. He understands what Spurs need to do to get back in this game. He's ordering other players about. He's kind of barking orders, and that was quite apparent from that first training video that we watched when he came in, how vocal he is, how demanding he is of other players at just such a young age at 22. And that's part of the reason why, not just with his ability, but I think it's really going to work for him in the Premier League. He understands the demands and the intensity. A bit like Romero, you see him kind of orchestrating out from the back. I think Simons can do that in the front line. I think that's what we miss with Maddison a little bit at times as well. Maddison does that a lot, where he understands what we need to do, how we need to break this team apart. It's about having kind of a character. Again, you see him here, telling players where to be. Here, it's kind of the body language, demanding a lot from these players. Again, here you kind of see him in this dangerous area where he can pick up the ball. Spurs recycle it back and kind of keep putting the pressure on Romero. What I like about this is, again, Romero kind of knowing that Simons is, where he's got a man kind of coming to him here at his back. Simons has got the low centre of gravity to either turn or make something out of this situation. He trusts him receiving it in those kind of areas. He tries the dummy. It doesn't quite work out. But again, it's just like, even when things don't work, you can see the quality and the intelligence. I thought it was fantastic. And again, another example of his threat on transition. He's runs from deep. This is something we spoke about in the video. Paulinho, again, breaking up the play, winning it back in that tackle. And then Simons collects from deep and then can drive. Look how much ground he covers here, taking players out of the game as he goes with him. Drive, drive, drive. And then what I love about here is, again, when you talk about playing the game at his own tempo and rhythm, kind of being that conductor and orchestrator, that ability to just not run down blind alleys, just to stop. The screenshots don't really do it justice, to be honest. But the rhythm that he plays with, the little sort of step over and the change of direction, that's one thing that really impressed me, is quick change of direction. And he does that to open up the space even more on Freda, kind of either needle pass through to Richarlison. He doesn't make the most of it. But he's such a fantastic player. Again here, what I like is an example of what I said earlier, playing this kind of bounce pass into the striker who pins the defender, and then look at the run he makes to kind of try and pick up the second ball. And he does that, runs into a little bit of traffic, but that's when he nearly wins the penalty. Like, being brave, committing players, making them make decisions, making them make mistakes. That's what I like. I think where Solanke's hold-up play is maybe a little bit better and cleaner. I'm not saying it was awful with Richie yesterday, but it's not been the best over the last couple of games. I love that Simons is going to do that. And then his influence on the second goal as well to get us back in it is so big. You see Spurs kind of building out in this free, at about Paulinho kind of tucking in, just keeping it ticking over, out to a doggy. Simons again, kind of the awareness of the space it needs to be in, that sort of left pocket Spurs. Work it back to Van der Ven. Kind of these sideways passes, looking to create space. And then Simons, you look at the intelligence here as he's sort of peeling off that last line. You see him in build-up a lot, kind of close to the striker on this sort of last line here when Spurs have got 5 across the front. Here he is. He recognises that he needs to come deeper to get on the ball to make it happen. Drops off that front line. You can kind of see him walking here. And with him kind of dragging Spurs out over to this left-hand side as well, what he's doing is shuffling that Brighton back 4 across as well. The ball comes into Simons here. I think it's Diego Gomez that goes to press him. He puts his foot on the ball, recognises that, I can cut inside and maybe keep the ball ticking over, but there's nothing really for me here. So he does that sort of fake step over and then cuts back. Just playing the game at his own rhythm, and again, gets a better angle maybe to face him up and go past him. Puts his foot on the ball. Again, as he kind of wants to move this way, as it looks like he might just play that pass out to a doggy, this Brighton back line is just shuffling across this way. And what it's doing is creating more space for Kudus. And Simons has got that quick ability to drop the shoulder, manipulate the play, disrupt Brighton's kind of block. And as he gets past him here, gets past 1, gets past 2, Milner jumps out to commit. They're kind of moving that back 4 about. They're not settled. And then what it does, as I said, is he kind of feints to go one way. Kadioglu and all this Brighton kind of back 4 were all shuffling across here. And then it means that Simons has got that ability to drop the shoulder quickly, can find Kudus in acres of space, like acres here. All this kind of room to work with. Simons plays it out to him. Kudus, again, it's like I said, ability to sort of go both ways. We saw him attacking the touchline so much, but he's got such a good half-space cross. We spoke about, before Frank came in, how much he loves the crosses from these positions, whether it's Kudus going to the byline and maybe cutting it back to sort of find Porro in this kind of position to deliver an in-swinging cross like we've seen him do so many times, or whether it's Kudus checking back to do that himself and it causes problems. Paulinho gets the flick on and Van Hecke heads into his own net. Kudus 2 assists yesterday. People talk about his end product. It's there for all to see. The quality's there for all to see. And I'm really pleased with what I saw from that Spurs side yesterday. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I think it's a good point for Spurs. We're still second in the league as it stands as we record this video. It's a really good platform to build. 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. A good start for Thomas Frank. And I think we saw a lot better stuff from us yesterday in terms of attacking, in terms of creating chances, and Xavi Simons was the catalyst for that. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Peace.